Hello, this video is for the IXL activity titled Complete a Function Table from a Graph. The three-character code for this activity is Hotel X-Ray Foxtrot, and at the time of this recording, this activity can be found at A1.Q.12. So we have a graph and we have a table, and we have to complete the table. The table will have blank spaces for us to enter values, and we have to find those missing values, and we're going to find those missing values from the given graph that we have. So each graph has a function on it. This blue line is a representation of the function on the graph, and we also realize that every point along this line is a possible solution for the function that is graphed on to the graph here. So with that said, let's go ahead and start looking at our inputs and outputs. We know that with an input of 3, we have an output of 0. So if we find where on the line do we have an input of 3 and an output of 0, well, that's right here, right? And let me switch over to red. There we go. So we have that point right there. That would be the first one of 3, 0. Now, x is 4. So if we find 4 on the number line, and let's go ahead and grab a line, and let's draw a line up to it. We see that if we come up if we start where x is 4, and I got a crooked line now. Let me try that again. And we come up where x is 4, and we come up to the graph. Now, if we see what is the value of y at that point, well, we see that it is indeed 3. So that's why we have 4, 3. Now we need to know what is the output if the input is 6. So let's go to where we have x is equal to 6. Go all the way up to the line of the graph of that function, and then meets the line, and we look over at the y value, and we can see at this point, well, that's 8 and that's 10, then this must be 9. Therefore, our missing value is 9. So that's what we'll do with each one of these problems. We'll look and see what the x value is, what its matching y value is, and we'll go ahead and fill in all the missing values that are on the table. Next slide here, use the graph of g of x to complete the table. So here we have x, and here we have g of x. This is basically like a y value here. This is function notation. We've talked about that in other lessons before. So let's go ahead and find out where x is equal to -2, and we see -2 right here. So let's take that up to the line of the graph and see what is its matching value of y. So our first one should be a +6. On the next one, let's go ahead and where's 0? Well, that's right here, right? 0, and it passes right through the origin right there where x is 0, y is also 0. So here we'll have 0 there. And let's go ahead and check that +2. Looking at the +2, we would take that down, see it matches up right there, and it goes over to -2. And indeed, you can see that in our table, we have a value of -2. Let's go ahead and look at the next slide. This is an interesting graph here. Reminds me of my trig class that I took years and years ago. So talking about sine and cosine and that kind of neat stuff. Whenever you graph it, it kind of looks like this graph here. So let's go ahead and look at this one here. And first one that we're going to consider is an input of -6. So we'll find -6 here for the value of x and follow it up. This is where it intersects the line of the graph. What is the y value? The y value happens to be 4. And where we have 1, looking where we have a +1, we go down and find that that matches up with -2. That agrees with what they've given us so far. And then where x has a value of 5, so we're going to have to go up on this one, and it meets right here, and follow that over, and it looks like that has a value of +7. Now, this graph here is somewhat interesting because it has some open dots and some closed dots. Let's take a look at those. Here we have an open dot on the end of this ray here, endpoint with a line, so we call that a ray, but we have an open dot. And then on that same x value, -6, we have a closed dot. Likewise, over here where x has a value of 8, we see a closed dot and an open dot here. Well, one thing that we know from graphing inequalities in the past is that an open dot means that that value is not included. Closed dot means that that value is included. So where we have -6, its corresponding y value would be 4 because we have a solid dot that lines up with the y value of 4. And here it's an open dot, so 8 is not included, so -6 would match up with 4 rather than 8. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one here, and we'll start off with -10, where we have -10. We go up, meet with the graph, the function that is, and we see that its y value is 6. On the next one, +1, that's right here. Go up here, mark that, go look over here, and indeed that value should be 3. And then for the last one they give us, -5, we have -5 right here. Go up, meet up with the graph here. And no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong number. I was looking at the y value. So I need to look at the x value here, +10. So I'll go +10, go down here, meets up with the graph there, and over to -5. And indeed, that's what they have there is -5. On this problem here, which is the last problem I'm going to do, notice that we have the open dots and closed dots again. And I'm looking over at the table here, and I'm hoping that one of the x values that line up with the open dot and the closed dot is in that table. And indeed, it looks like -7 is. So, and also -6. So we'll get to talk about that twice on this one. So if I go over and I graph, I find -10. And well, actually it's right there. It's at 0, right? So whenever I have a -10 for an x value, I can see that, I guess I could actually line it up. It runs over here and we see the y value is indeed 0 in this case. Now let's look at the next one where we have a -7, which is right here. Let's go up to the graph. Now we're going to pass right through the open dot one because that one is not included. We need to keep going to the solid dot, and that's the one that's included because it's a solid dot. So this would be a +4. And then finally, on the last one over here where we have +6, we're going to go and pass right by the open dot because that means that point is not included in it. We wouldn't want to use -1. Instead, we're going to go to the closed dot, and that matches up with -4. And that's pretty much all there is to each of these activities, like you say, in all of the ones that we've done here. Just simply find the x value, find out what its corresponding y value is, and then complete the table with the missing values. All right? So those are all of my examples for complete a function table from a graph. 3-character code, Hotel X-Ray Foxtrot. Now, go level up your learning.